Illinois residents 16 and up can now register their intent to be an organ donor, educating them about the process and the importance is a full-time job.
Anything and everything from events, initiatives, podcasts, whatever it takes to bring awareness, education, and registration about organ and tissue and eye donation.
That's Community Outreach Program Lead of Gift of Hope Organ and Tissue Donor Network, Lisa Dodson. I'm your host, Monica Fox, kidney transplant recipient and Senior Director of Outreach and Government Relations for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. On this episode of The Journey Continues, Lisa shares how her work has allowed her to raise awareness about organ donation to thousands of teenagers and their families. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Monica. It's my pleasure to come and talk about this topic.
So how long have you been at Gift of Hope, and what's your role?
I am with Gift of Hope Organ and Tissue Donor Network and with the Community Outreach Department in the role of managing our downstate program, which is everything below I-80. I've been in this field for over 23 years, and I know. And now I've been with Gift of Hope since 2014. So even that's going on 11 years. And by the way, I'm not old. So
you started as a young girl.
Very young. I did want to share something personally because there were a lot of things aligning on this topic that we're going to discuss today. And as you are a recipient, I'm a donor wife. In November of 2016, my husband passed away. And that's when I became a donor wife. And he was a cornea donor. So 2 men in Michigan have the gift of sight from my husband, Dan.
That is wonderful.
Isn't it? And it was at the same time that I was appointed to develop and manage a downstate community outreach program. And I didn't officially start until January of 2017 because of Dan's death. But I often tell people that my personal and professional life aligned in the sense that during the greatest time of personal loss, I gained a new purpose in community outreach. And it has been just absolutely a perfect fit for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That is so interesting to know that about you and your story. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So what do you do actually in your role downstate?
I wear quite a few different hats, and I'm very proud of the fact that we've actually just this year expanded our team. So we have what's called a pod, and so myself and 3 staff cover the downstate area. And by that, I mean anything and everything from events, initiatives, podcasts, whatever it takes to bring awareness, education, and registration about organ and tissue and eye donation. And I also manage the staff that we have down here and work with the leadership team up north.
And so you've developed a partnership with the Illinois High School Association. How has that helped to raise awareness about organ donation?
You know, we all like to think that there's one thing that you've done in your career in a certain role that has made a difference. And so a little bit of history about our IHSA partnership. As you know, Monica, in August of 2017, the Drive for Life Act was passed. And this was going to go into effect in January of 2018. And this is the legislation that allows 16 and 17-year-olds to register their intent to be a donor. And so in January of 2018, when the legislation went into effect, prior to that, we had started having meetings with the IHSA because on our team, we were like, okay, so this is huge. This is huge that 16 and 17, because that has always been a priority for our organizations. And I say our because everybody pays attention to our younger folks, high school and college. And so, since this was such a priority, we asked ourselves, what is the best platform to reach high school students? And it was like the Illinois High School Association. If you don't know anything about the IHSA, just briefly, it's the organization that governs the participation in interscholastic athletes and activities in the state of Illinois. So when you hear people say, oh, we're going to the state finals, the championship, this is coordinated by the IHSA.
Okay.
As a partner, our partnership is actually between Donate Life Illinois and the IHSA. And I know you know this, Monica, but I think it's important to let our listeners know what the DLI is, Donate Life Illinois. The DLI is a coalition of organizations that work together to raise awareness and increase registration for organ, tissue, and eye donation. So, member organizations, and I'm going to list a few, but please, it's not all inclusive, but the organization that Monica works for, National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, the Secretary of State Life Goes On program, the other OPO that has a certain territory in Illinois called Mid-America Transplant, and also Eversight. Those are just a few. There are some other organizations as well, but again, it's a full coalition of members from across the state in different organizations. So our partnership, it's really cool because there's so many of us that is working towards the whole idea of increasing registration for the youth of Illinois.
Yes, and it's so important to all of those organizations.
Exactly. I mean, I think all of us recognize it as a true priority. And I'm very proud to say that we're going into, in fact, I'll be signing the agreement, the partnership agreement this week. We're going into our 8th year because, like we said, it aligned with the legislation, which has now been in effect.
That is wonderful. So what are the types of events that we deal with and how do we participate?
I'm going to just kind of hit on the highlights of what the partnership brings to us. Keep in mind, this organization has a membership of over 800 high schools across the state. So it gives us access to not only the IHSA state finals, but also it gives us access to those high schools, to being able to do mailings and email blasts through the IHSA to all of their member schools. The thing that gives us probably the most visibility is our attendance and participation at the state final events. So through the years, we've learned what are the best events, the best fit for us to optimize our message and interaction with the students. And so we are at least 6 to 8 of the major events every year. And as part of that, we can pretty confidently say that we have the opportunity to interface with over 125,000 people. So just to give you an example, one of the biggest events or the biggest event is boys basketball. And typically there's over 40,000 people that attend
Wow.
over the 3 days. And the IHSA, which by the way, amazing partners, such commitment to our mission and to what we're all trying to do. They demonstrate that commitment by going above and beyond. So for Merch Madness, we elevate our presence and we can do an on-court interview. We always have digital assets that say yes. That's the motto, say yes to organ and tissue donation. So there is, we do a lot of interactive stuff. We have a spin the wheel game. We have these really cool driver's license like photo cutouts that we can have the students or parents take pictures and it says, I said yes or say yes. So we're trying to recognize the folks that have said yes, but also encourage people to say yes.
Yes.
Another piece that I really want to highlight is the stories of hope, which on the IHSA website, we feature student donor athletes. And you can click on, I'm going to call it a little ad, but you can click on that and read the full story. But we have the opportunity to rotate those ads monthly. So sometimes we feature those donor athletes that have passed and become donors. We have featured the organizations of Donate Life Illinois. So again, it gives us a presence and an ability for people outside our typical network to be able to see the message and see real life people that have experienced donation.
That's awesome.
And I'll tell you a quick story. We did a poster that turned into a mailing to all 800 of these high schools. And I love this story because we had obviously a printer that did the poster for us, right? And when we were working with him and he saw the faces of like 9 student donor athletes, student heroes, we call them stories of hope. When he saw that, it left such an impression that he said, all of these kids are dead. And unfortunately, yes, they are, but they left a tremendous gift. So we hear stories all the time when people have these aha moments, in terms of understanding. When we say these folks are heroes, we truly mean it.
Yeah.
They're saving lives.
Yes. And it's so important that people begin to understand that and really see firsthand what that means, what organ donation means.
Like yourself, we try to connect it to the stories of people that have been able to enhance or live their life because of these donors.
How do you feel that young people react about organ donation?
You know what? It's my favorite group to work with because most of the time, I would say 99% of their time, when we talk with them about donation, their response is somewhat like, why wouldn't I? I'm not going to use it when I'm gone. They're very open to the conversation about donation, the process. We always tell them, be sure to let your family know your wishes.
Yes, that's important.
That's important with any age, but especially with high school students or 16 and 17-year-olds, because they're not yet of legal adult age. And so their parents still can revoke that decision until they are 18 of legal age. And we know many stories where some parents, I'm going to speak in terms of it being a son or daughter, some parents have said, I knew my son or daughter was a very caring, giving person, and I knew their wishes. And some have said, I didn't know, or we didn't know, but we're going to honor his or her wishes. So those discussions are so, so important. And if I can say, I want to let you know, the donor registry for 16 and 17-year-olds, the inception would have been in 2018, right? When the legislation passed, the Secretary of State started to track those numbers. And of course, the majority of students, their commitment from the standpoint of the numbers, we know that a lot of the bulk probably of the registrations come from when they go in and go through the testing to get their driver's license. So at that time, they're asked if they would want to be an organ and tissue donor. So between all the efforts, we are currently at the beginning of October, we're currently at over 360,000 16 and 17-year-olds that are registered.
That's an amazing partnership. And I think that, the number of high school students and their families that we are reaching through that program is just absolutely astounding. And I'm sure that it adds to the number of adults that consider and reconsider organ donation and adds to those conversations that are had, which is so important.
For us, it's like when you go to these events, and it's true with a lot of the things that any of us do out in the community, right? And you hear the stories. We have people come up just to share their story because somehow they are connected to organ tissue, eye donation, and or transplantation. So it really helps to remind us of why we do what we do.
So what other outreach activities do you do to attract teenagers?
I think the next one is really the grassroots efforts to get into the classrooms and speak and educate, classroom-based education. Typically, it's with a driver's ed class, but it can also be like a health ed class. And so in our organization, we have folks, obviously our community outreach staff, but we also have ambassadors, volunteers that we have trained because we find a lot of our volunteers are closely connected to their communities and have contacts or have access into their community high schools. And sometimes we end up doing different kinds of events at high schools like Hoops for Hope. So during a basketball game, we'll have a registration table. We'll have someone speak and listen to a story, either donor or recipient at halftime. It's amazing how many people are connected to donation. And when you ask that question, it opens up opportunities.
And I'm wondering, there are a lot of colleges in Central Illinois. Do you guys work with college students at all?
We sure do. I've been focusing on high school, and again, because of having to manage our resources, we identify targeted schools and colleges, high schools and colleges. So right now we're making strides at U of I. It's been a goal of mine for a very long time to have internship programs with colleges that they can help us navigate the college campus, if you will, while they pursue their education. So, we have colleges, U of I in Champaign, we have Bradley in Peoria, we have ISU in Bloomington Normal, just to name a few. But those are probably the largest and at the top of our priority list.
I think that's so important, too, to reach those college-age students.
Well, the other really, and again, it's just that connection if you think about it. So many of the high school or the Illinois High School Association state finals are actually located on college campuses. So in March, we'll be going to March Madness, boys basketball, the really big event at U of I, as well as boys wrestling and girls cheer is in Bloomington Normal. Sometimes it's at their civic center and sometimes events are at the ISU campus. So if anybody is out and about and going to any of the IHSA events, please look for us. Look for the Donate Life Illinois registration table.
I'm sure they won't be able to miss you.
Well, it's, I have to say, even after 8 years, and I have staff now that can join or cover the event, so to speak. For the longest time, I was at every single one of them, and I enjoyed them immensely. I loved interacting with the students and the high school students. We do have a few other things that I can mention that we work on with high schools. In addition to the classroom-based, we're also a member of the Illinois High School and College Driver Association. And so, again, it's that access to the people that are closest to the high school students. And this association hosts fall workshops where we can present to the driver's ed teachers. And hopefully they say to us, will you come and speak? Up to our classroom. So that's been a really fairly new but really good partnership. Another way, to be able to reach out and connect. Another thing that is very much worth mentioning is the Student Organ Donation Awareness Organization. It's called SODA. And SODA is an organization that gets high school and college students involved in spreading awareness and education through their initiatives. So the students are responsible, and then they're sponsored by SODA and the organ procurement organization in terms of support staff. But it's really a great concept because it's peer-to-peer. They're responsible and they reach out to the students at their high school to gather and to determine what kind of work they're going to do with the guidance of the SODA staff.
That's great. I love that.
It is, and we're trying to do more with that because I think that peer-to-peer interaction is so important.
Yes.
And the last thing I'd like to mention is something that we started several years ago at Gift of Hope in our community outreach department. We like to feel like we give back. And so we have a program called Care for Our Community, in which we distribute backpacks that have Donate Life Illinois on them in the month of August when kids are getting ready to go back to school. And we know that school supplies are very expensive. So this gives us a way to try to identify those in need and get some school resources to them.
Great.
Yeah, it's really hoping that through all these different arms that we're able to reach out and connect with folks. And I think our registration numbers are telling us it's working.
So, what's the main message that you want people to know about organ donation?
Say yes. I'm going to tell you a quick story because even those of us that have been in the field, been doing this a long time, my husband's death promoted me to have to step back and recognize my own weakness. I've always been strong and heavy on organ and tissue, but I think in saying yes, people need to realize donation is donation is donation. Organ, tissue, and eye, it's all important. And so I have since stepped back, and now I make a special effort when I'm presenting or educating to say this because I needed to spend more time on eye, also known as cornea donation. And I asked folks, if you were to lose a sense, one of your senses, which one would be the most difficult for you to adapt to? Well, for me, it's vision.
Yeah.
And to think that my husband gave the gift of sight to two people. And by the way, they have a fantastic view of the world because he was a fantastic person that truly loved life. I would say, if anybody says to me, well, he was just a cornea donor. No. There is no just. Anyone that gives, whether it's organ, tissue, or eye, anyone that makes that decision is a hero.
Absolutely.
And has given something back, even though they're no longer here. It has made me so much more aware of advocating for that eye donation and for people to understand the importance of that. And certainly organ and tissue, very, very important. But I always say to folks, say yes. If you desire to be a donor, register. People say to me, oh, but I'm too old. I'm sick. I'm not that healthy. I said, you know what? Your job is to register. Our job at Gift of Hope is to assess medically a huge comprehensive assessment of A, are you medically suitable to be a donor? And B, if so, is it the organ path, the tissue path, the eye path, or all three? So say yes.
And what suggestions do you have for people who want to have the conversation with their family and friends, but may be hesitant or resistant to have that conversation about registering to be a donor?
I think no matter who you are, nobody is eager to talk about death.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest barriers. One of the biggest challenges is that you have to have the conversation. And I like to look at it from the standpoint of a tragedy such as death is hard enough as you go through it in real time. So, like anything else, if you can make your end of life decisions prior to tragedy, truly, that is the best time, not only for you, but for your family. And for those of us like Gift of Hope, we're the folks that are there at the bedside. And as you can imagine, it's very difficult if the family is not on the same page. Although I do want to remind folks that when you register to be a donor, it is a legally binding decision. And your family or friends cannot override that at the time of your death. So again, it's important to have the conversation.
Well, those are great last words. And I want to thank you for taken this time to have this important conversation with me and for sharing all the great work that you guys are doing to help educate our teenagers and families all across the state of Illinois.
And I want to thank you for having me and wanting to speak to this topic, because I think it's so important. And sometimes I think folks know it's important, but maybe don't know the why behind it.
It is so important, and I appreciate your work.
Thank you. I appreciate yours too.
By registering to be an organ donor, you're committing to save lives. By advocating for organ donation, you're helping others to make the same powerful choice. For more information on deceased organ donation and the work that Lisa's doing with Gift of Hope, go to giftofhope.org. I'm Monica Fox, and this is The Journey Continues. Prevention's a key part of our mission at the Kidney Foundation. That's why at the end of each episode, we share a health tip.
Here is today's nutrition tip about dining out. For people living with chronic kidney disease, dining outside of the home or ordering takeout can feel stressful because it can be difficult to navigate the menu for kidney-friendly food options. So how can you enjoy dining out and keep your kidney diet in mind? Do some homework before you order your food or eat at the restaurant. Many restaurants now include nutrition information on their websites or menus to help consumers make healthier for them food choices. Soups, sauces, and salad dressings will likely have added salt, so be sure to check the nutrition information if available before you order. And you can always call the restaurant and ask if it's possible to prepare the menu item you desire without added salt. When you do order, do it with a kidney-friendly plate in mind. By ordering a small mixed green salad dressed with oil and vinegar, a steamed vegetable side, a healthy protein that's baked or steamed, and a grain serving. If going with a plant-based protein option like a veggie burger, ask if any preservatives have been added, as these may increase the phosphorus and sodium content. A safe sauce choice for most people following a kidney-friendly diet is olive oil and garlic over rice or noodles. Be sure to keep your portions in check and ask for a to-go container when your food arrives. Put half of your main dish in the container before you even start to eat, or if you're getting takeout, portion out your meal on your own plates instead of eating out of the container. The National Kidney Foundation has a great resource called Dining Out with Confidence for people in CKD stages 1 through 4 and on dialysis. This resource can be found at kidney.org, or you can call the NKFI office for a printed copy to be mailed to you. With today's nutrition tip, I'm Melissa Press, a registered dietitian nutritionist